Welcome to today's weekend spotlight for the Connected Spirit, Connected Biz giveaway event. Today I've got Lorraine with me, who is my networking goddess, goddess guru.
Thank you.
And we're going to have this wonderful little chat about what she does and what she's got to offer. So thanks for being with me today. So for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about how you even got on this path, because it wasn't necessarily by choice, was it?
No, it was not. I say I got on the path kicking and screaming. So my career in the high-tech industry came to a sudden end on a Monday morning when my manager called me and said that our whole department had been laid off over the weekend. I was not expecting that, and it was a time when companies were laying off, no hiring, so none of my attempts at getting a job were successful, but I kept taking freelance kind of gigs and keeping food on the table and the mortgage paid. And our CPA said, looks like you started a business. And I said, oh, no, I'm still looking for a job. And 20 years later, I still haven't found one.
I'm glad.
Yeah. So I love what I do, but it was not an easy start. I had no idea what it meant to be in business, start a business. So I learned the hard way by making a ton of mistakes. And starting off, I was like, what do you do? How do you do this? And so I took out every possible book from the library, came home with bags of books to figure this out. And they all were saying, network, you got to network. And I, what does that mean? How do you do that?
Yeah, yeah.
One of the books had kind of a recipe, which when we had newspapers, look in the newspaper, I'm dating myself, look in the newspaper and find, networking events around you. So I found one that was like, for professional women. I thought that's for me. Okay. So it took me 3 attempts to finally get to the restaurant where the meeting was being held.
Right.
And I sat in the car and I thought, I can't do this. Walking into a room full of strangers was just so. I was tempted to turn around and go home, but this perky little person knocked on my car window and said, are you here for the meeting? And everything inside me was saying no, screaming no. And she opens my car door and says, come with me, I'll introduce. Oh my God. So we get in there, she's introducing me to people. I hadn't read far enough in the book to where you have to do a 30-second introduction. I had no idea what I said, but I know it probably didn't make sense to anybody. And by the time I got home, my suit was drenched. I just really perspired a lot. And I thought, there's got to be an easier way. And during the week, one of the women called me and said, you are coming back, right? Oh, yes.
That almost seems like your little guardian angel that was like, come on, you can do it. I'm here to help you.
Push, push, push.
Yeah.
God bless these women. It was like, I figured I had to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
So what I proposed was that we do monthly workshops, because I had done training and development in the corporate world. And I thought, okay, I talk about communication, leadership, and all these things. So we would have a potluck once a month, and I could do what I did best and learn from them. And so I got to be able to network, not well, but the whole story is in my book, Business Building Referrals. I made a study of this whole phenomenon about networking and how to talk about your business. So it's not an easy thing, right? So when people start a business because they're a good plumber, a good electrician, a good whatever, the whole other piece of building a business isn't intuitive.
No.
And I
And
see
most people don't
so
have a
much,
clue. Yeah.
just do it wrong. It's like, ugh. I recently went to a networking, substituted for somebody at one of these formal networking groups. There were 50 people there. And because I'm used to doing these studies to see what's working and not working,
Right.
of the 50 people, I heard only 7 people because they mumble, they don't speak coherently, they don't stand up, talk about, take a stand for what you are and what you value to bring, you know, so it was wow. And this particular group says, oh, we're the most professional networking groups, but first thing, you're unmarketing yourself with your message. So I'm on a mission to help people market themselves well without spending a ton of money. You're there. 30 seconds, you've got the spotlight on you and your business. And if you don't use it well, shame on you. So I've done a lot of talking.
It's all good though. It's all good. So at this point, bumpy start, but a lot of us we learn through trial and error, and that's how, and then we've got those stories that actually help people
Yeah,
learn and avoid that. So that's wonderful
if it had been easy, I would not be able
to
to
teach it.
be the coach for small
Yeah.
businesses because I spot these things like at this networking event. If it was easy for me, I wouldn't have paid attention, but I'm in the mode of what's working, what's not working, and I thought, wow, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. So at this point, who is it that you mainly work with?
I mainly work with small business owners who are what I call traveling down 5 lanes at the same time. You're not going to win the race that way.
Yeah.
Got to
Yeah.
get in one lane. And I'm working with a couple of clients now who are all over the place and feeling overwhelmed, right? We both know that feeling, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you're in that mode of craziness, you can't communicate well the value that you bring or
Yeah.
who you are and what your business is. If you're all over the map, people turn off, they don't pay attention, and you can't get business that way. And
So
it's
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So that brings up a really good point that I run into like with my clients and I experienced in the beginning, and I still, it still rears its head. It's like, but I want to do it all, I want to save the world. I want to, and you can't. So how do you help people realize that piece that, you really do need to narrow it down, and there's still plenty of people out there to there's enough people still to support what you do. It's not like you know, there won't be enough people,
Right.
right?
Yes. So what I do with my clients, it's like, who is your target market? And they think they know.
Yeah, and
And
you don't.
I'll tell the story of one client. So when I said, okay, so let's just call him Dennis. Dennis, what is your target market? And his eyes got like, well, anybody who can use my, and I said, no, Dennis. We have to find out who is your target market. And so I started asking questions around who it was. And all of a sudden, he's like, oh, it's these people. And they want this and they want that. And he realized he wasn't going after that market. He
Yeah. Yeah.
was, and so this realization kind of expanded instead of contracting who his
Yeah.
target market is. And then we began to work on the messaging and how is he going to reach those people? And his business has grown by 1,000%. Seriously, it is
Yeah.
amazing. It's like, oh my God, it opened up doors that he never thought about.
Yeah.
So the fear of identifying a market is unfounded because once you identify that market, the messaging, how you show up, where you show up becomes very targeted, and you don't spend time and money and resources chasing after people who really aren't your market.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yep. And that's,
So
I think that's the key. It's such a huge key for most people, so
yes.
very
So
cool.
one of my clients was chasing a market that couldn't afford to spend a dime. And she was wondering, why am I not getting clients? Why am I not getting business? I said, because you're chasing people who have no money.
And
So
I think that's hard for us, that like the kind of people that are very much in the service and like I'm here to help and I want to, improve. So I want to save the world, right?
right,
And
right.
it's hard to to realize like you can't, number one, you can't save everybody, your vision of it. And and number two, you still got to eat. You still got to pay
Yes.
rent. You still got to, have a mortgage, or you got to
Because
live. And
if you have no paying clients, you have no business.
yeah, yeah,
So changing her direction to people who could afford and could benefit totally changed her attitude. It's like, oh, I'm trying to get people who can't afford me to afford me, which is, you
yeah.
know,
You can't, it's gonna
frustrating
take
them,
more than you
frustrating
to fix that one.
right, right. It's like, so she's enjoying her business now because she's attracting the people who can afford, want to work with her.
Yeah,
So, yeah, big difference.
yeah. So you've told us kind of how you got started and who you're working with. How are your services arranged? How does, like, when you're working with somebody, what's kind of the core product or service that you're
Okay,
using to help them move forward?
so I'm offering a business mastery academy and I'm pulling out, parts of that to help people get acquainted with the work that I do, but it's from soup to nuts, right? So how identify your market? How are you going to market to them? What's the messaging? What are the words that you use? Um, how are you, do you have a plan for networking? People just go
Yeah,
willy-nilly to all these events, whether their target market is there or not. Spend a lot of time and money with no return on that investment. So a plan. How are you how are you going to build your business? Right? Are you measuring the results? And if you don't measure results, then you don't know whether what you're
yeah,
doing is working. And so we go through all of those things that make a business successful. And at times people feel like they have to hire staff. I help them with that, with how to interview, how to do a job description, how to hire the right people. Because if you don't hire the right
yeah.
people, that's another can of worms. But
Yep.
and so taking the time to plan what you're doing is so critical. Because they would just jump in. It's like, oh, here's something, and they develop their squirrel behavior, and that's don't ever put things into practice.
Yeah.
So when I work with my clients, I want them to see results. Is what you're doing working?
Yeah. And I think that's the key, I mean, a lot of us, well, speaking for myself, but it's like I can do I've been able to do the planning piece lots of times, but it took me a lot of years to realize, like, well, what are you measuring? You know, like exactly like you said. And so many people are like, well, I have this plan and I'm going to do this plan. But if you don't really realize, how do you know when it's working
Mhm.
and pay attention to that, you know,
Right.
you're it's spaghetti at the wall, you know?
Mhm.
And
Yes.
I think a lot of coaches and programs out there don't teach that piece, because then if you do teach that piece, it, you know, it kind of highlights holes and things that like maybe that worked before, but not so much in the
Right.
current situation, right?
Mhm.
So that's power. And you know, and we're so many times we're blind to our own, you know, we don't see our own blind spots. So it's
Mhm.
nice having
Right.
somebody with
And
experience
so I
going,
think
yeah, you're missing this point.
yeah, I think that's some of the value that a coach can bring is they're looking at your business from outside and saying, asking the hard questions, right? And so when I do ask those questions of people, well, how are you planning to market that? Um, I hadn't thought about that.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
Well, do you have a budget to be able to do that? No. Well, what's the free marketing thing you're going to do that you're willing to do, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes I have one client who decided not to pursue something because it would have cost a ton of money to do it. She didn't
Yep.
have the time. It was a great idea, but when I asked the hard questions about that idea, she would have spent a ton of time and money and probably not got results as a, you know, for her effort. So she realized herself, um, that's not a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not
Great
every
idea,
is
just
a
not
good
for her
one.
at this moment, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the gift that you're offering, because you're offering a really wonderful gift and everybody that's watching needs to get it.
Well, it's ways to introduce yourself at networking events. And then I'm offering a boot camp on the 27th where people can really get down and dirty and get that 30-second introduction ready.
Honed in, really
Yeah,
honed in.
because
Yeah.
the time to prepare your 30-second introduction is not when you're walking through the door at a networking event. I
It's
guarantee.
not.
No, I tried that. Doesn't work.
Me too.
Your brain leaves your body
Yep.
when the
Yep.
spotlight is on you. Um, but it takes work, and so in the boot camp, what we do is we go through the value that you bring, the words you're using, how you get people engaged, how you keep their attention, how you get them to walk up to you and want more information.
And
I had,
and I'm assuming, like as you're saying that too, you're kind of helping people how to create that so it doesn't sound like a canned, stiff thing, right? That's always been my fear
yes,
and experience with other people. It's like, you know, you just memorize this thing and you just spew it out and it,
yes,
you know,
yes,
there's no you in it. It's just
right.
words. Yeah.
So we don't do a canned commercial. You'll have, you'll walk away with choices of and templates where you can fill in words and bring attention and feel comfortable, right? So you can tell when somebody is just reciting something that they memorize. Um, and there's no, like you say, there's no person there.
Hmm.
So want personality. So I give people ways of creating interest. Okay, so that you get people's attention and market your business in a way that feels comfortable for you and gives people information about your business,
Yeah.
because I realized over time that I would get up and say whatever I said, and people didn't understand what I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, of course, they didn't run up to me and say, "Tell me more," because
Yeah. And that's a tricky part because we get caught up in our jargon of whatever it is that we do, right? And we assume that people will know those same terms and words and they
Yes.
don't,
No,
So
absolutely not.
yeah,
You
you're
know,
not talking to yourself, you're talking to somebody that has no clue.
right. And so when computer people do computer talk over people who don't understand,
Yeah.
or it's like going to the doctor and getting a diagnosis that you have no clue, you think you're going to die, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all you have to do is go home, take an aspirin, but you don't walk out knowing that. So,
Hmm.
so bringing it down to people's understanding and using language that people can understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
yeah,
Well, like I said, anybody that's watching needs to go get it because there's always room for improvement, even if you've been doing it for a bazillion years. You
yes,
know, there's always nuggets there. So
yes.
thanks so much for being on the call. Anybody that's watching, the links for her gift are going to be below the video. And love your wisdom, love your nuggets. And
Thank
thanks for being on with me today.
Great. Yeah. So let me help you market your business, not unmarket
Here, here. Sounds good. All right, everybody. See you on the next one.
it. Bye-bye.